Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask the Minister for Infrastructure whether the recently advertised airport transport service is selling spare seats on existing patient transfer buses only.
Minister for Infrastructure, Mr. Harmer.
Thank you, Mr. President. In essence, yes, the service to and from the airport only runs when the Department of Health and Social Care funded patients travelling. Any spare capacity on these services is being offered to fare-paying passengers in the north of the island who wish to make that journey.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Has the Minister assessed the provision of this service in line with the OFT guidance on public-private competition, and what was the result?
I can come back with full details, but it has been part of the RTLC application. It's a trial for 1 year, and any other further detail I can supply. But in essence, it's a really good news story for the North. We are also looking at the North in terms of demand-responsive transport, in terms of providing facilities. So as other members have mentioned it's about meeting the needs of people, meeting social needs. So, it is a positive step, and it is a trial, and we'll see how it proceeds.
Mr. Hooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's a number of supplementaries that flow from a few of those statements, but I'll try and take them one at a time. The first statement the Minister made was, in essence, yes. Well, that means no, surely. This is selling just the spare seats. There was a recent social media post from a well-known Ramsey celebrity stating that he was the only person on the transfer bus coming from the north. The bus was put on specifically for him, so that is not selling spare seats on an airport transfer bus. There is no way the Health Department paid for an empty bus to travel from the north to Douglas. So I'd like clarity on that, please. Is this just selling spare seats, or is the department specifically putting on empty buses for 1 or 2 patients? The second aspect of that reflects around the impact on the taxi trade. It's hard enough getting a taxi in the north of the island some days as it is. What impact assessment has been done to make sure that this government-run taxi service isn't going to prove detrimental to people in the north of the island in the long run when taxi companies start shutting up shop because of subsidised competition from bus vanning?
Okay. Mr. Harmer.
Thank you. I don't agree. It's not a taxi service. Taxi service is very different. It's point to point. You basically hire a taxi from A to B. It's yours private. You're not taking a number of different stops. You're not sharing it with other people. And it goes exactly when you want to, whereas this service doesn't go when you want to. If the service is available, if it's running, then you can take part in it. If it's not running, and there are occasions when it's not running, then the service is not available. So I don't agree. It's absolutely not a taxi service. It is about reallocating resources, particularly when we move towards, and I hope later this month, early next month, when we move to a more system of dealing with those buses in the north, where at the moment they're very big, they are empty, and the idea is not to run empty buses at all, but to run buses with passengers in them. I do think we do need to look at change. Change has happened across in other jurisdictions. It's a very positive thing. I don't agree it has any. It's not detrimental to the taxi trade. Often these buses are already. There are no other options in the north because of the way that we have licensed areas. You can't pick another fare in the north if you're going that way, and so forth. So this is a bus service. It's meeting need. It is in a trial. We will take evidence and see how it proceeds. But it's actually what we need to focus on is about the needs of the community. That's the most important thing, and that is my focus on all of this.
Remember, Mrs. Beecroft.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wonder if the Minister could comment on the advertisement that's going out on the radio about these seats at the moment, because I happened to hear it the other day. And it certainly didn't make it plain that it was just if there was a spare seat on patient transfer service, which tends to be early in the morning and then coming back at night anyway. It just said if you want to go to the airport and you're in the north, something along those words, then give us a ring and you can have a seat for £10. It didn't say if there's one available or make it clear that it was patient transfer. So if you could just comment on the advertisement, which I may have misheard, but I'm sure the Minister can clarify. And also, is it actually right to be selling spare seats on a patient transfer service where you've got ill people who may be quite upset about the day that they're going to have to face, and at the moment are going in even if it's with other patients who would be sympathetic. I'm asking, sorry, Mr. President, I'm asking if he thinks it's appropriate, and if he could just comment on that aspect of it.
Minister to reply.
Yes, I do think it's appropriate. We work very closely with the Health Department, and where there are other requirements such as, you know, an ambulance or other sort of travel requirements, then obviously they will be treated in that way. But where it's a straightforward transfer, then they will use these minibuses. And of course that was the right decision, because it's bringing something that was a government service in-house. And I know the member's been very supportive of demand responsive transport. It is flexible. It is. I don't see the point of having buses with empty seats, and in many cases, particularly in the rural areas, and we're talking Andrews, Derby, and those sort of areas, there is no other service. So this is meeting people's needs. It is a trial, but I do think if we want to look at how the bus service goes forward and makes it more efficient, we do need to adapt with the changes. But fundamentally, this is a bus service.
Honourable Member Mr Baker.
Thank you, Mr President. Would the Minister agree with me that this trial initiative achieves making better use of public expenditure? It provides an enhanced service for the public who are not served particularly well by the current arrangements, and its success or otherwise will be reviewed at the end of the trial in a year's time, when a very clear and objective assessment can be made.
Absolutely, and it's about really meeting people's needs, about reducing costs, and we have to fundamentally look at there's lots of pressures in terms of demands, in terms of efficiencies that have been demanded from the bus service, and we have to adapt to change. The alternative is we just cut services everywhere, and I'm sure members don't want that. We have to adapt and make our service flexible, and it is a year trial, and we will assess that trial as we come to its conclusion.
Last supplementary in this question, Mr Hooper.
Thank you, Mr President. I'm very glad the Honourable Member for Eremichael made that statement, because this should be about the better use of public expenditure, which is why my first question started this off was, are you just selling the empty seats on existing patient transfer buses essentially to make better use of public expenditure, or are you putting buses on when there wouldn't have been a bus otherwise? Can I get a £10 bus from Ramsey to the airport and it will be empty? The answer is yes, because we have evidence that has happened. So back to my first question, is the intention of this to make better use of public expenditure, to sell spare seats on buses that are travelling anyway, or is the department putting on a subsidised point-to-point taxi service? That's the question.
Minister?
Yes, I do take issue with the consideration of a point-to-point. It's not a point-to-point taxi service. You share that with other people. If there's only one patient transfer, and in essence that's its purpose. Its purpose is just to sell those additional seats that is with patient transfer.